My boyfriend shared a bed with a girlfriend he used to date. What else should I do? When my boyfriend, Jake, decided to go on a trip with his friends last year, I never anticipated the emotional storm that would follow. It was supposed to be a simple vacation, a fun escape with his old university buddies. I was supportive, even excited for him. But what transpired during that trip unraveled my sense of security in our relationship and has left me grappling with an anxiety I can't seem to shake off. The day he left was like any other, filled with mundane routines and a lingering goodbye kiss that felt slightly longer, more intense, as if he was subconsciously aware of what would come. I spent the week buried in work, trying to distract myself from missing him. We'd been together for almost 3 years, and our bond felt strong enough to weather any storm, or so I thought. It was a Friday evening, a week after he'd left, when the first wave of unease hit me. Jake called me from the beach, the sounds of laughter and crashing waves in the background. He told me about their day, the fun they'd had snorkeling and exploring, but something in his voice felt off, like he was holding back. I shrugged it off, attributing it to my overactive imagination and the distance between us. Saturday night came, and I was out with some friends, trying to enjoy myself despite the knot of anxiety tightening in my stomach. Jake's messages were fewer and briefer than usual, and his responses lacked the warmth and affection I was used to. Around midnight, after a few too many drinks, I decided to call him. The phone rang several times before going to voicemail, and when he finally called me back, his voice was slurred, and he sounded distant, almost defensive. "Hey, sorry, I was out with the guys," he said, his words barely coherent. I remember feeling a pang of worrying, but I pushed it down, not wanting to seem like the paranoid girlfriend. "It's fine, just wanted to hear your voice," I replied, forcing a smile that I hoped he could hear through the phone. "I'll call you tomorrow," he said before hanging up abruptly. The following day, I tried to shake off the unsettling feeling. Jake's texts were sporadic, and when he did message, they were filled with short, impersonal updates about the trip. My mind began to wander, concocting scenarios that I tried desperately to dismiss. I knew he was with friends, but the uncertainty gnawed at me. When he returned, I was eager to see him, hoping that being together again would dispel my fears. We met at a cozy cafe near our apartment. He looked tired but happy, recounting stories of their adventures, but I noticed he avoided eye contact when he mentioned certain moments of the trip. It was during one of these stories that he casually mentioned the sleeping arrangements. "We all crashed at this small Airbnb," he said, stirring his coffee absent-mindedly. "It was cramped, so we had to share beds." My heart skipped a beat. "Who did you share with?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. He hesitated, a shadow crossing his face. "Emily," he finally said. "There wasn't anywhere else to sleep." Emily, the name hung between us like a ghost. Emily, who he had kissed once before we started dating, during a drunken night in university. Emily, who had always been just a friend, but now the thought of them sharing a bed sent a cold chill down my spine. I could feel my chest tightening, anger and hurt bubbling to the surface. "You shared a bed with Emily?" I repeated, my voice trembling. He nodded, looking uncomfortable. "It was just for sleeping. Nothing happened, I swear." I wanted to believe him, but the betrayal cut deep. I had specifically told him before he left that I wouldn't be comfortable with him sharing a bed with another woman, especially one he had a history with. Yet, here we were, the very scenario I dreaded playing out before me. We fought that night, a heated argument filled with accusations and defensiveness. I felt betrayed, hurt that he had disregarded my feelings so blatantly. He kept insisting that it was purely platonic, that he had no choice and that nothing inappropriate had happened. But the damage was done. The trust I had in him felt shattered, replaced by annoying insecurity. Over the next few weeks, we tried to move past it. He apologized repeatedly, promising that it was a one-time thing, a mistake born out of necessity. I wanted to forgive him, to believe that it was just an unfortunate circumstance. But every time I thought about him sharing a bed with Emily, my heart ached. We went through the motions of normalcy, but the issue lingered like a shadow over our relationship. I found myself questioning his every move, wondering if he was truly being honest with me. My mind conjured images of them together, laughing and sharing secrets in the dark, and I couldn't shake the jealousy and hurt. Then came the news of another trip. This time, it was for a close friend's wedding. He was invited along with the same group of friends, including Emily. When he told me, I felt a surge of panic. The thought of him being in the same situation, potentially sharing a bed with her again, was too much to bear. "I want you to go," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "But I need to know that you won't put me in that position again. I can't go through this a second time." He looked at me, his eyes filled with guilt and determination. "I promise, I'll make sure it doesn't happen again. I'll find another place to sleep, no matter what." Despite his assurances, I couldn't shake the fear. I knew I wouldn't be able to join them this time due to work commitments and the cost. As the date of the trip approached, my anxiety grew, and the memories of the previous trip resurfaced, amplifying my doubts. The night before he left, we had a long conversation. He held my hands, looking into my eyes with a sincerity that both reassured and scared me. "I love you," he said. "I'm sorry for what happened last time, and I'll do everything I can to make sure you feel secure. Please trust me." I nodded, trying to believe his words, but the unease in my heart remained. As I watched him pack, I couldn't shake the feeling that our relationship was on the line, that this trip would either mend the rift between us or break us apart. The morning he left, I hugged him tightly, my heart heavy with a mixture of hope and fear. "Be safe," I whispered, trying to keep the tremor out of my voice. "I will," he replied, kissing me gently. "I'll call you every day." And with that, he was gone, leaving me to wrestle with my emotions alone. The first few days were a whirlwind of work and distraction. He called every night, just as he promised, and his voice was filled with warmth and reassurance. But as the trip progressed, the anxiety I'd tried to keep at bay began to creep back in. I found myself constantly checking my phone, waiting for his messages, looking for signs of reassurance that never seemed to come. Every time he mentioned the group or Emily, a pang of jealousy and fear twisted in my gut. I knew it was irrational, that I needed to trust him, but the wounds from the previous year hadn't healed. One night, a few days into the trip, he didn't call at our usual time. I waited, my heart pounding, as the minutes turned into hours. When he finally did call, his voice was rushed, and he sounded distracted. "Sorry, we were out late, and I lost track of time," he said, his words slurring slightly. I tried to keep my tone light, but the worrying was evident. "I was worried. You said you'd call." "I know, I'm sorry. We were just having a few drinks, and it got late," he replied, trying to brush it off. But the anxiety that had been building up inside me spilled over. "Who were you with?" I asked, my voice trembling. He hesitated, and I could almost hear the tension in the silence. "Just the group. Emily was there too, but we were all just hanging out. Nothing happened, I promise." The mention of her name felt like a punch to the gut. "I told you how I felt about this," I said, trying to keep the tears at bay. "I can't handle this again. I don't want to be the jealous girlfriend, but you're making it so hard." "I know, and I'm sorry," he said, his voice softening. "I'm trying to be more careful. Please, just trust me. I love you." I wanted to believe him, to hold on to the love we shared, but the doubt was overwhelming. I spent the rest of the night tossing and turning, my mind racing with fears and insecurities. The trip continued, and Jake kept his promise to call every night, but the conversations were strained. I could hear the frustration in his voice, the exhaustion from trying to reassure me while enjoying his time with friends. I felt like I was being unfair, but the pain from the past had left a scar that wouldn't heal. Finally, the trip came to an end, and he returned home. When I saw him at the airport, I felt a rush of relief and love, but the tension was still there, lurking beneath the surface. We hugged tightly, and I could feel the weariness in his embrace. That night, we talked, really talked, for the first time in weeks. He told me about the trip, the fun they'd had, and the steps he took to avoid repeating the past mistake. He reassured me that he had slept on the couch or found other arrangements whenever possible, and that he had done everything he could to respect my feelings. I listened, my heart aching with a mixture of love and fear. I wanted to believe him, to let go of the pain and trust him fully, but I knew it wouldn't be easy. The betrayal, even if unintentional, had left a mark on our relationship, one that wouldn't fade overnight. In the end, we decided to take things one day at a time, to rebuild the trust that had been shaken. I knew it would be a long journey, filled with ups and downs, but I loved him, and I wanted to make it work. As we lay in bed that night, wrapped in each other's arms, I whispered, "I'm trying, Jake, I really am. I just need time." He kissed my forehead, his arms tightening around me. "I know, and I'll be here, every step of the way." And so, we began the slow, painful process of healing, hoping that our love would be strong enough to overcome the scars of the past